Imagine for a second that you are standing on a street corner in Hong Kong. It's early morning, maybe 6 a.m.
Right.
The humidity is already starting to stick to your shirt. The city is wiping the sleep out of its eyes, and the neon lights in the central district are just flickering off.
Just that quiet moment.
It's that quiet moment before the roar of the financial hub really kicks in. And then out of nowhere, absolute chaos erupts.
And we aren't talking about, a fender bender or a bus running a red light. We are talking about something that looks like he was ripped straight out of a cyberpunk novel.
Exactly. We are talking about an autonomous taxi, one of those sleek, pod-like electric vehicles that look like a toaster oven on wheels going completely rogue. It is tearing down a steep incline, careening off the road, smashing into concrete barriers, clipping police motorcycles, and completely ignoring every single safety protocol hard-coded into its system.
It's a terrifying image.
Yeah.
And usually when we see autonomous vehicles glitching out on the news, we assume it's a bug, a bad line of code,
Right.
a sensor blinded by the sun, or maybe a connectivity issue.
Yeah, a glitch.
But in this case, the glitch wasn't an error. The glitch was the point. The taxi wasn't crashing because it was broken. It was crashing because it was being driven.
Remotely and aggressively.
Extremely aggressively. I mean, it was being used as a battering ram.
And inside this pinball machine of a car, the authorities, specifically the Chinese Ministry of State Security, or the MSS, believe they have the most wanted man in the Eastern Hemisphere trapped.
They think they've got him.
They have the streets locked down. They have armored personnel carriers blocking the wharf. They have the net tightening. This is the arrest of the century. But when the dust settles and they finally pry the doors of that battered taxi open with the jaws of life,
The man they want isn't there.
no! Instead, they find a terrified government minister and his mistress who probably thought they were just taking a private ride home and ended up in a demolition derby.
Which is, it's the perfect opening move for what we're discussing today. That empty taxi, that bait and switch, is the catalyst for the Cold Zero incident.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something a little different. We are unpacking a massive stack of operational logs, recovered flight data, intelligence reports, and narrative accounts that detail a geopolitical nightmare that played out in the high Arctic.
Yeah.
We've got a defecting scientist, a weapon that can rewrite the rules of modern warfare, and 3 superpowers converging on a desolate patch of ice.
It's a fascinating case study because it really combines 2 genres that usually stay separate. On one hand, you have this high-tech cyber warfare thriller with AI and hacking.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have the most primal, visceral struggle for survival you can imagine. We're talking about nuclear submarines hunting each other under the ice while survivors from a plane crash are fighting off polar bears on the surface.
And the centerpiece of all this conflict, the MacGuffin that almost started World War III, is a single laptop, or rather the code inside it.
Skyfire.
Skyfire. It sounds like a bad Bond movie title, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
But the capabilities described in these reports are very real and, frankly, very disturbing. So let's start at the beginning. Let's look at the architect of this chaos, Dr. Chen Li. Based on the profile we have here, this guy wasn't exactly a suffering dissident living in a basement, was he?
Far from it.
No.
Dr. Chen was effectively royalty within the Chinese defense sector. If you look at the background check in the dossier, we're looking at the villa on Yalong Bay, European luxury cars, unrestricted travel within the state, academic tenure.
Do he had it all?
He was comfortable, he was celebrated, but he was also watching his life's work morph into something he hadn't intended.
That's the classic Oppenheimer moment, right? You build the bomb because the physics is interesting. Then you realize you can't control where it drops.
That's a very fair comparison, but with a digital twist. Chen spent a decade building Skyfire. Originally, the logs suggest he pitched it as a defensive kill switch.
A defensive tool?
Yes. The idea was to give the Chinese leadership a way to shut down their own military hardware if there was an internal rebellion.
A way to take the keys away from a rogue general.
Exactly. Imagine a scenario where a military faction tries to stage a coup. They get in the tanks, they launch the drones, the central government pushes a button, and all those tanks just stop.
Right.
The engines die, the drones land. It's the ultimate insurance policy for a centralized state.
Which makes sense in a highly centralized authoritarian regime. You want ultimate control over the guns.
Precisely. But the MSS, the Ministry of State Security, saw the potential for offense. They looked at this tech and said, wait a minute, If we can lock our own tanks, can we unlock everyone else's?
Oh, wow.
They didn't just want to secure their own hardware, they wanted to hijack the enemy's.
Let's get into the weeds on the tech here, because hacking is such a broad term. I can hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi if I guess the password. This is different. How does Skyfire actually work? Because the report describes it almost like a biological virus.
It's not brute force in the traditional sense. It's more like aggressive diplomacy. The hardware is a laptop connected to a specialized high-gain dish antenna.
Okay, I can picture that.
The AI suite inside probes the radio frequency, the RF spectrum. It's listening. It is constantly scanning the airwaves for the chatter that machines use to talk to each other.
Like the data link between a drone and its controller?
Precisely. Or the signals between a traffic grid and the stoplights. Or the communication between a tank and a satellite. Once Skyfire identifies frequency, it attempts a digital handshake. It mimics the trusted signal.
So it knocks on the door and says, hey, it's me, the admin, let me in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's the scary part. Because the encryption protocols on military hardware are often designed for speed and reliability rather than constant deep packet authentication, the system often lets it in.
So it's a vulnerability of convenience.
It is. Once Skyfire is inside the network, it attacks the operating system.
Yeah.
It bypasses the safety protocols and inserts itself as the root administrator.
So if I'm flying a drone, suddenly my screen goes black and you're flying it.
Or worse, the reports detail a capability where Skyfire can simply invert the IFF identification friend or foe protocols.
Whoa. Explain that. What does that mean?
Every modern military vehicle has a system that tells it who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. It prevents friendly fire.
Right, right. The little green and red dots on the screen.
Skyfire can flip that switch. Suddenly, a tank's targeting computer sees its own platoon as enemy combatants.
That is terrifying.
Oh.
It's a force multiplier that makes your enemy's budget your own asset. You don't need to build 1,000 tanks if you can just steal theirs in the middle of a battle and make them shoot each other.
That's the capability Chen was bringing to the West. He realized that this wasn't a shield anymore, it was a sword. And a sword that could destabilize the entire globe. But there's a catch, a big one. Before he defected, Chen didn't just copy the files onto a USB drive.
He burned the library down.
He executed a scorched earth protocol on the MSS servers. 10 years of R&D, all the backups, all the source code, all the algorithmic training data vaporized in milliseconds.
So everything is gone.
Everything.
Which means the laptop in his briefcase isn't just a copy.
It is the only one, the only working prototype in existence. If the Chinese get it back, they save their program and 10 years of work. If the Americans get it, they not only deny China the weapon, but they can reverse engineer it to build a defense against it.
So that briefcase is basically the nuclear football.
In this context, yes.
Yeah.
It is priceless. And that is why the reaction from Beijing was so immediate and so violent.
Okay, so Chen grabs the laptop. He needs to get out of Hong Kong. This brings us back to that taxi crash we started with. It wasn't just chaos for the sake of chaos. It was a magic trick. It was a sleight of hand.
Misdirection. Pure and simple. The MSS relies heavily on digital surveillance. Hong Kong is one of the most surveillance-heavy cities on Earth. They were tracking the IMEI number of Chen's phone.
Standard stuff.
They were also tracking the RFID chips embedded in the soles of his shoes.
Wait, they put chips in his shoes?
Standard procedure for high-value assets in that sector. They want to know where you were stepping.
That is dystopian.
It is. But Chen knew it. Which explains why the MSS swarmed the taxi. They saw the signal. They were following the pings.
Right. Chen took off his shoes, left his phone, and put them in the taxi.
Effectively, yes. He loaded his digital identity into that vehicle. Then, using Skyfire, he hacked the taxi's navigation system, overrode the collision sensors, and sent it on that kamikaze run we described.
I have to pause on the decoy couple inside again. The minister, Luo Sheng, and his mistress. That is, I mean, it's clever, but it's incredibly ruthless.
It is. It shows us something important about Dr. Chen. He's a scientist, yes, but he isn't soft. He's desperate.
Absolutely.
He was willing to sacrifice innocent, or at least unaware bystanders, to buy himself a 20-minute head start. He knew that taxi was going to crash. He didn't care.
And it worked. The MSS is pulling a concussed politician out of a wreck, completely confused, and meanwhile, Chen is on a high-speed ferry to Macau.
With his handler. And we need to introduce Casey Sheridan, codename Orion.
CIA operations officer.
A veteran field agent. From the looks of her file, she's the one who orchestrated the movement. She knew Hong Kong was too hot, too many cameras, too many checkpoints.
Right.
So they moved to Macau. The security protocols there are looser, focus more on casinos and money laundering than counterintelligence.
It's the perfect backdoor. But they aren't in the clear. The MSS isn't just faceless goons. We have a specific antagonist here, Zhang Tao.
The chief of the MSS 7th Bureau,
Oh.
counterintelligence. The files on him are fascinating. He's not your typical villain twirling a mustache in a dark room. He is a man in agony.
Literally. The report mentions trigeminal neuralgia.
They call it the suicide disease.
Right.
It involves the trigeminal nerve in the face.
Yeah.
It causes random, excruciating shocks of pain, like an electric drill to the jaw or a lightning bolt hitting your cheekbone.
Wow.
It can be triggered by anything, a breeze, chewing, stress.
And he's trying to run a manhunt while dealing with that. I can't even imagine.
He's popping Degreltal pills like candy just to function. He's paranoid. He has the Minister of State Security screaming at him from Beijing. And then, standing on that wharf, looking at the smashed taxi, he realizes he's been duped.
That moment of realization, when he sees the minister instead of the scientist, that must have been the breaking point.
It was. That's when the mission shifted. Up until that point, the goal was likely arrest and retrieve.
Bring him in.
But Zhang knew he couldn't let Skyfire reach the U.S. If he couldn't catch Chen, he had to destroy him. It was a career-ending failure happening in real time, and he was in physical torture while it happened.
Which leads us to the flight. Hemisphere Airlines Flight 777.
This is where the story gets really dark. Hemisphere isn't a normal airline. It's an ultra-luxury carrier flying out of Macau. It's a retrofitted Boeing 777.
777 usually holds, what, 300 people? Something like that?
Easily. This one was configured for 40.
40 seats. That is insane.
The layout described in the accounts is just incredible. Private sanctuaries instead of seats, a stand-up bar in the middle of the fuselage, a spa in the back. It's a flying palace.
And Casey Sheridan chose it because?
Because it attracts high-net-worth individuals who value privacy. No paparazzi, minimal security checks, very discreet. It's the perfect cover for smuggling a defector out.
So they're in the air, champagne is flowing, they think they've pulled it off. Chen is probably finally relaxing, thinking he's safe. But Zhang has an ace up his sleeve, and it's not a missile.
No. Shooting down a civilian airliner is an act of war. You can't just launch a fighter jet and blow up a passenger plane without the whole world turning on you. Zhang needed something cleaner, or at least more ambiguous.
Plausible deniability.
He activated a sleeper agent. But not a person. Code.
This goes back to the supply chain vulnerability we talk about all the time.
Exactly. Years ago, the MSS 13th Bureau, their cyber warfare division, managed to compromise the software supply chain for the engine control modules.
So the computers that run the engines.
The sensors, specifically. The little bits of hardware that monitor the jet engines. They planted a dormant piece of malware.
Just sitting there, waiting for a command.
Waiting for a specific digital signature. When Zhang sent the command from Beijing, the malware didn't shut off the engines. That would be too obvious. Instead, it started lying.
Lying to the flight computer.
It fed false telemetry data to the FADC, the Full Authority Digital Engine Control. It told the computer that the exhaust gas temperatures in both engines were spiking to critical levels. We're talking meltdown temperatures.
But the engines were actually running fine, just humming along.
Perfectly fine. Smooth, efficient, cool. But the computer doesn't know that. The computer relies on the sensors. It sees fire, it sees critical failure, so it follows its hard-coded safety protocol. It cuts the fuel to save the engine from exploding.
It's gaslighting a machine. The pilots, Captain Fowler and First Officer Brett Sharp, are sitting there, the plane is flying fine, and suddenly the computer decides it's burning up and shuts everything down.
And imagine the confusion in the cockpit. You're a pilot. You look at your instruments, red lights everywhere, engine fire warnings. But you look out the window, you don't see smoke. You don't feel the vibration of a failure. But you can't argue with the computer.
And because of the automation, the pilots can't just override it easily.
Not easily, no. The reports show they're rebooting, running checklists, trying to restart. But every time the computer boots up, the malware screams, "Fire!" and the computer kills the fuel again. It's a loop of death.
So you have a 200-ton luxury hotel turning into a brick over the Arctic Ocean.
In the middle of a polar night. In a storm.
And to make matters worse, Beijing initiated a jamming protocol, right?
Yeah.
The logs mention this.
Yes. As soon as the malware triggered, they jammed the satellite frequencies in that sector. So when the pilots tried to send a mayday, the messages failed. The plane simply vanished from the grid.
The crash mechanics described in the log are brutal. They almost made it.
They were skilled pilots.
Yeah.
Captain Fowler did everything right. He lined up for a belly landing on the ice. Now, landing on ice is tricky. If it had been a flat sheet, a perfect frozen lake, they might have all walked away with some bruises.
That's not a lake.
But sea ice isn't flat. It has ridges, pressure ridges, where huge plates of ice collide and push up. They call them ice hills.
And they hit one.
The forward fuselage cleared it. But the tail section, which is heavier because of the APU and the vertical stabilizer, caught the ridge. It acted like a hook. It sheared the plane in two.
And that's where the tragedy is compounded. The back of the plane.
Is where the black boxes were,
Yeah.
and where the underwater locator beacons were, and where most of the passengers were, including Casey's partner, Walter Ho. That section sank immediately into the freezing water.
Gar.
The front section, with the cockpit and the first few rows of seats where Chen and Casey were, slid across the ice like a sled and came to a stop.
So you have the survivors on the ice, but the beacon telling the world where they are is at the bottom of the ocean, miles away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It created a false search zone. The world is looking for a wreck underwater, while the survivors are freezing to death on the surface.
Let's talk about those survivors. We have 9 people left out of 56. It's minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, pitch black. And they are wearing what?
This is the survival of the chicest. They survive the crash, but the cold is the immediate killer. Hypothermia sets in within minutes at those temperatures, so they raided the luggage in the cargo hold.
Which, because this is a luxury flight, wasn't full of T-shirts and jeans.
No, we're talking $10,000 mink coats, layers of Armani suits, cashmere scarves, high-end ski gear. You have First Officer Sharp, Casey Sheridan, Dr. Chen, and a few others, wrapped in whatever they could find.
It's a surreal image. A group of people huddled on an ice floe looking like they're about to walk a runway in Milan.
It is, but it saved their lives. Cotton kills in the Arctic, fur and wool work.
Casey Sheridan really steps up here. But she's in a bind, right? She's a spy. She can't just announce, "Hi, I'm CIA. Everyone listen to me."
She tries to maintain cover as a civilian consultant.
Mm.
But her training bleeds through. She knows how to triage injuries. She sets Dr. Chen's broken leg. She knows how to secure the perimeter. First Officer Sharp, who is ex-Air Force, notices this immediately. He knows she's not who she says she is.
Sharpface seems like a solid guy. He's dealing with the guilt of the crash, thinking he failed the passengers.
He's carrying a heavy load, a really heavy load. He thinks it was mechanical failure or pilot error. He has no idea he was shot down by a hacker. But he channels that guilt into action. He organizes the shelter.
The life raft solution was genius. I want to highlight that.
It was. The back of the fuselage was torn open, basically a wind tunnel. If you sit in that wind, you die. They inflated a 20-foot yellow life raft inside the cabin to plug the hole. It sealed the wind out, creating a small insulated pocket in the front of the plane.
And for heat, they can't exactly chop firewood. There are no trees.
This is my favorite ironic detail in the whole report. The cargo manifest listed a shipment of textbooks destined for the Confucius Institute in New York.
For those who don't know, explain what that is.
The Confucius Institute is a Chinese state-sponsored educational program. It promotes Chinese language and culture abroad, often viewed as a soft power projection tool.
So they are burning Chinese propaganda to keep a defecting Chinese scientist alive.
History has a dark sense of humor. They're ripping pages out of these books to keep a small fire going in a metal bin. But the fire attracts something else.
The bear.
A polar bear, an apex predator. You have to remember, to a polar bear, everything is food. It smells the bodies in the aft cargo hold. It starts stalking the wreckage.
This adds a whole primal layer to the story. You have high-tech espionage, satellites, coding, and then suddenly you're fighting a 1,000-pound carnivore with claws the size of steak knives.
Casey had to bring cover to handle it. They found a Winchester Model 70 rifle in checked luggage. Someone was probably going on a hunting trip.
Right.
Casey handles that weapon with a proficiency that a corporate consultant just wouldn't have. She tracks the bear. She stands guard.
And Sharp sees this. He's a military guy. He knows what he's looking at.
He sees it, and the tension builds. He realizes he is trapped on the ice with a liar.
While they are freezing and fighting off bears, the rest of the world is waking up. And this is where the Cold Zero incident goes global. We have 3 players entering the arena. It's like a game of Risk, but on ice.
It's a classic Mexican standoff, but with naval assets. Let's look at the board. Player 1, the People's Republic of China. They deploy the Snow Dragon 2.
The Sulong 2. It's an icebreaker.
Ostensibly a research vessel, but in reality, it's a floating intelligence platform. It has advanced sonar, heavy-lift helicopters, and a complement of security personnel.
And the captain, Yang Shu, is under immense pressure.
The logs describe him as a careerist. He married the daughter of a high-ranking party official. He's not the most skilled sailor, but he is politically connected. He needs a win to prove he belongs there.
But he's looking in the wrong place, right?
Completely wrong place. He's following the ping from the black boxes at the bottom of the sea. He's scanning the ocean floor 300 meters down. He assumes the whole plane sank. He has no idea the prize. The laptop is drifting on an ice floe 15 miles north.
Okay. Player 2. The United States. The USS Cheyenne.
A Los Angeles-class attack submarine. Captain Hansen. They were already in the region conducting ice exercises. They have a SEAL team on board led by a Lieutenant Drake.
And the Chinese tried to play them, didn't they? With a decoy.
A classic decoy move. The Chinese dropped a fake emergency locator transmitter, an ELT hundreds of miles away. It drew the Cheyenne off course.
I love the detail in the report about the SEALs finding that decoy, hiking across the ice expecting a crash site, and finding a yellow box blinking in the snow.
It must have been infuriating. And Lieutenant Drake just shoots it. No hesitation. The report says he just says, "We've been had," and they turn around and race back toward the real search zone.
But then there's the wild card. Player 3. Russia.
The Aurora. This is a Leica-class hunter-killer sub.
I haven't heard of that class. Is that new?
That's because it's brand new. A prototype with stealth tech. Extremely quiet. Captain Arkady Curtin is the commander.
Why are they even there? Do they know about the laptop? Do they know about Skyfire?
No, not at all. That's the beauty of it. They're completely in the dark. Curtin is just an old-school Cold Warrior. He was trailing the Americans, then he started trailing the Chinese because the Chinese icebreaker was making a ton of noise, bashing through the ice.
He's just being nosy.
He's curious. He's wondering why everyone is converging on this one spot. And then his sonar operators pick up something weird.
What's that?
Gunshots.
Casey shooting at the bear?
Exactly. Acoustic transients. A sharp crack that doesn't belong in nature. Sound travels incredibly well underwater, especially in the cold layers of the Arctic. Curtin decides to investigate. He thinks, what are people doing shooting guns in the middle of the Arctic Ocean during a storm?
So curiosity brings the Russians to the table. This brings us to the turning point. Casey realizes they are going to die if they don't get help. She has the sat phone capability in the Skyfire laptop.
But using it is incredibly risky. The fuselage acts as a Faraday cage. It blocks signals. To use the dish, she has to leave the shelter, go out into the storm, and set up the antenna.
And she risks the Chinese intercepting the signal.
And she does. And Sharp catches her.
Oh, this is the big confrontation.
He catches her red-handed with this piece of high-tech gear. He sees the dish, he sees the laptop, and the confrontation just explodes. Sharp is furious. He connects the dots. He grabs her by the coat and demands answers. My plane didn't just break. You people broke it.
It's a heavy moment. He realizes his passengers were collateral damage in a spy game. All those people in the back who drowned, they died for a laptop.
But Casey manages to turn him. She appeals to his sense of justice. She basically says, yes, they brought us down. They killed your passengers. Do you want to let them get away with it? If the Chinese recover this laptop, they win. They get the weapon, they erase the evidence.
And Sharp, being the soldier he is, decides to fight. He realizes the only way to get justice is to make sure the laptop gets to the U.S.
He aligns with Casey, they set up the dish, they send the signal.
It bypassed the standard frequencies and ping Langley directly, a tight beam.
And the CIA headquarters lights up, they get the coordinates. They realize two things simultaneously. One, the Cheyenne is racing back, but it is still hours away, at least 5.5.
And two,
the Chinese icebreaker, the Snow Dragon, is terrifyingly close. Only 15 miles.
The reply they send is chilling. I have the text here from the log. It just says, do nothing to highlight your position.
It's the hardest order to give and the hardest to receive. We hear you, help is coming, but if you light a flare, if you use the radio again, the bad guys will find you first.
Because if the Snow Dragon sends a helicopter, it's game over. They can be there in 10 minutes.
Exactly. So they wait. They huddle in the dark, listening to the wind, hoping the Americans get there first. And this sets up the final scene of the logs, the cliffhanger.
They're huddled by the fuselage. They hear a noise, a cracking sound, deep, resonant, like the earth splitting open.
Not the wind, not the ice settling. This is mechanical. This is big.
They look out and the ice literally shatters. A massive black fin rises up out of the frozen sea.
A submarine surfacing through the ice. It's one of the most powerful displays of naval power there is. The conning tower smashes through 3 feet of solid ice, sending blocks flying.
And for a second, Casey and Sharp celebrate. They hug each other. They think the Cheyenne made it. We're saved.
But Sharp has the binoculars. He's a pilot. He notices details. He looks for the hull numbers. He looks for the U.S. flag.
And he sees the stenciled warnings near the hatch.
Cyrillic characters.
It's the Russians.
It's the Aurora. And that's where the logs end. The survivors are trapped, the Chinese are 15 miles south and closing, the Americans are racing in from the west, and a Russian submarine, heavily armed and completely confused, is parking in their front yard.
It is the ultimate Cold Zero standoff. You have 3 superpowers pointing guns at each other over 9 freezing people and a laptop.
It really highlights the fragility of the situation. You have billions of dollars of technology stealth subs, AI weapons, satellites, all focusing on a few freezing people on a shrinking piece of ice. One wrong move, one misunderstood signal, and you have a shooting war between nuclear powers.
So zooming out, what is the so what here? Why should the listener care about a spy story in the Arctic other than the fact that it's a great story?
I think it comes back to what Chen warned about, the kinetic potential of cyber warfare.
Kinetic meaning physical, real-world damage.
We used to think of cyber attacks as digital nuisances. Someone steals your credit card number or takes down a website for a few hours. But Cold Zero shows us that code can kill.
The malware didn't just corrupt data. It convinced a physical engine to shut down. It turned a civilian plane into a weapon against itself.
Exactly. And we are integrating software into everything. Our cars, our power grids, our hospitals, our dams. We are connecting the physical world to the digital world.
And if you can hijack the control systems, you don't need to bomb a city to destroy it. You just turn off the water and the power in the middle of winter. You tell the dams to open their floodgates. You tell the cars to crash.
It creates a world where trust evaporates. If I can't trust my car to drive where I tell it, or my plane to stay in the air, or my medical device to regulate my heart, society grinds to a halt.
That's the terror of Skyfire. It weaponizes trust. It turns the tools we rely on into potential enemies.
And the question Chen poses, the reason he defected, is the one that's going to keep me up at night. In a world where software controls the physical world, who actually holds the keys?
And what happens when the person holding the keys decides to turn them?
That is the defining question of our time. And as Flight 777 showed us, the answer can be devastating.
It certainly can. Well, on that cheerful note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Next time you step onto a plane or get into a smart car, maybe take a second to appreciate the millions of lines of code keeping you safe. Or, just bring a really warm coat.
Always bring the code.
Thanks for listening. Safe travels, everyone.